The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille. Welcome to the Italian Grape Geek podcast. Join us as we explore personal stories of travel and tasting with Italy's must-know grape varietals. Chart your own course with My Italian Grape Geek Journal, your personal tasting companion to accompany the series. Available now on Amazon. With thanks to Colangelo and Partners for their generous support with this project.
Hello, I am Paul Bologna, and I'm a Vinitaly Academy wine ambassador, and I'm going to be talking today a little bit about some grapes. But I thought I would introduce myself to your listeners as to who I am and my wine career. I started my wine career 35 years ago, so quite a long time ago. After graduating from college, I moved to Napa Valley. I knew I always wanted a job in wine, and I was lucky enough to get hired at the historic Inglenook Winery in Napa Valley. I worked as a somm for the JW Marriott, Desert Springs, which had just reopened at that time. And I started a long career in hospitality at that time, about 30 years. So I worked in the restaurants, and I also did this very fun job. It was called wine tasting on the boat dock. For a decade, I would do daily wine tastings for a small group, and every day I would do a different theme. I eventually moved to the Ritz-Carlton brand. This was about 8 years ago, where I was a wine buyer and floor somm in the fine dining restaurant there for just a few local restaurants in the Palm Springs area. But over the last 30 years, I've been always studying Italian wine. Overall, I've visited about 10 of the 20 regions so far. So my aim at this point is to visit more and study more Italian wine. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. So let me begin by talking about the grape Bosco today. So Bosco is a native Italian white grape variety. It makes both dry wines and a sweet wine. And these three wines, Cinque Terre, Colline di Levanto, and Chicatra Cinque Terre, dessert wine, are really not well known outside their area. I mean, people know Cinque Terre. But when it comes to the grape Bosco, I'll tell you, in my childhood, I knew Bosco as this syrupy chocolate thing that you'd put over ice cream or put in your milk. So today I'm going to be talking about the adult version of Bosco. But let me begin by describing the wines made from Bosco. So I'll start with the dry white. And I had mentioned before I did this wine tasting on the boat dock at the JW Marriott, and there I would always describe Italian whites as different than New World whites. They're different in that, California, the alcohol level tends to be a little higher. Italian whites are a little bit lower. So when you taste Old World wines and New World wines together, Old World wines always tend to outmuscle sort of the subtleties that are in the Old World whites. So a lot of times I don't like to pour them side by side, but that being said, the wines tend to be a little bit more delicate. White flowers, citrus, grapefruit, very common for Bosco as well as for other white wines from Italy. But in Italy, they rely on skin contact, lees aging to add complexity to the wines, not necessarily oak like you find here in the New World. So let me also say that Bosco as a grape, its home is in Liguria. I mentioned the Cinque Terre. Cinque Terre, very famous UNESCO World Heritage Site that many tourists flock to in the summer and even now in the shoulder season. Hard to get a room in one of those 5 villages, but you can often stay in La Spezia nearby. Overall, in the big picture with Italy, Liguria is in northwest Italy. Genoa is the capital. It has France to the west, Piedmont to the north. To the east is Emilia-Romagna. It's right there along the coast, and Bosco loves to be grown in a marine environment, so it loves the sea. I will say for most people, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, you've probably seen Cinque Terre on your screensaver with Microsoft. It's gorgeous ocean, hilltop town villages, multicolored homes, really quite beautiful. Most tourists, they go to Rome, Florence, Venice, Milan. Cinque Terre, usually second, third, fourth trip, but something definitely to see. Certainly, it's on the bucket list of so many people. So let me get back to Bosco. It's not a monovarietal wine, although it can be. There's rare examples of it, but it's mostly part of a blend, usually blended with Albarola and Vermentino. And when it comes to the art of the blend, wherever you are blending wines, whether it's in California with Merlot added to Cabernet or Semillon to Sauvignon Blanc, the idea with blending, in this case with Albarola and Vermentino, the idea is you want to create a wine where, the different components by themselves, they need the other grapes for synergy to make a better wine. So juice A blended with juice B to create wine C. Wine C is always going to be better than the juice from A or B. Otherwise, you just bottle those separately. So there's an art to the blend. And so Bosco is a tannic white variety, and this is what it really adds to the blend. So it behaves like a red wine in a white dress. So it's a tannic white variety. It gives the little bit more heft to the blend. For the most part, you're going to find these wines only in Cinque Terre. So if you are in America, good luck. You will see them maybe in fine wine shops, but really you're going to be drinking these wines in that area. The production level is not so high that they're distributed all over the world. They need those wines to serve the tourists that come to Cinque Terre. Labels to look for: Chio, very famous for their dessert wine, the Chactra, Cinque Terre Chactra, which is made from air-dried grapes. Something to mention with Bosco is it requires heroic viticulture. So heroic viticulture is a concept where, maybe you have steep cliffs. So tending to these vines, the owners are quote unquote condemned to hard labor because they're picking grapes in a very precarious situation. I personally have picked grapes before. It's not easy. On a slope, even harder. To appreciate Bosco, you really need to appreciate all of the work that goes into making the wines from this grape. So let me talk about typical Ligurian dishes that you're going to have with the wines. Focaccia, there's a few types. To have chickpea, the farinata. The chickpea farinata is another dish. Pasta, you're going to get the corzetti, which is like a medallion-shaped pasta, the trophy, and of course pesto sauce. So that whole area is known for the herbal infusion into food. So lots of pairings are going to be matching these wines with an herbal component. So that is pretty much Bosco. I will say, if you are enjoying a wine from the Cinque Terre, good for you. You're in a bucket list spot. And if you have never tried the Bosco grape, you will likely have to visit that area to try it. Enjoy. Hi, this is Paul Bologna, and I'm here today to talk about Arneis. Arneis is a crisp, dry, fresh wine, semi-aromatic, with a notable creamy texture. And most Arneis wines are not barrel-aged, so enjoying the wine while it is fresh and young allows you to appreciate the delicate fruit and floral notes. It's really a good starter wine. When it comes to Arneis, where is it grown? Well, it's mostly grown in Piemonte, which is in northwest Italy, known for high-quality native grapes: Moscato Bianco, Timorasso, Erbaluce, Nascetta. Piemonte is really an exciting region for native grapes. In these 5 main areas of Piemonte, created by rivers, most of the Arneis grows in the Roero, but it can be found all over the region, including Sardinia, actually, which was a surprise to me. It's used in the blend of 15 IGT wines. But in Piemonte, there are 2 DOCs and 1 DOCG wine made from Arneis. The 2 DOCs are DOC Roero, which actually has a red as well, and the DOC Terre di Alfiere. The DOCG, which you're going to probably encounter a lot, is the Roero Arneis. When it comes to the theories of how Arneis got its name, there's a few. One of them is that it was the ancient name Ardano. Another is Renesio di Canale, which is a cruise site in Roero. In the Piemonte dialect, Arneis means little rascal, and it kind of connotes this annoying quality to the grape, which really has to do with its harvesting and its grape characteristics. Also, in the Piemonte dialect, Arneis means little rascal, which refers to its irregular productivity in the vineyard. It can be a little pesky at harvest time. I'll talk a little bit about that later. Arneis was also called Nebbiolo Bianco at one time. It was planted nearby the Nebbiolo grapes, so the birds would, in fact, eat the Arneis before they would eat the more expensive Nebbiolo grapes. When it comes to the history of Arneis, it's been planted in Piemonte since the 1400s, though it nearly went extinct in 1960. But at that time, it was revived by Alfredo Corrado of Vieti and Bruno Giacosa. And subsequently, there was a big growth in plantings over the next couple of decades. And in the 1990s, it was kind of the it grape. I say that because I was around in the mid-1990s, and I actually did an event with Alfredo Corrado around Arneis, which was, I look back on that now, how exciting that was. I was working as a somm at a restaurant called Tuscany's at the JW Marriott Resort in Palm Desert. And at that time, I opened a lot of Toretto Blanchet. It was a very popular wine. And that event I did with the Corrados was great. Gifted me a piece of art, which I have to this day. So I look back fondly on that time. So getting back to the big picture with respect to the Arneis grape, I will say there are three key traits to the grape. One, it's early ripening. Two, it drops acidity quickly at harvest time. And three, it has a creamy texture. So it kind of sets it apart from other Italian white wines. And note on that dropping acidity, the when of when you're going to pick the grape really does point to creating the style of the Arneis that you're going to be making. So there's a trade-off between aromatics and acidity. So that little rascal reference I mentioned earlier comes into play here because the timing of picking the grapes really puts pressure on the winery to pick on a certain day at a certain time, or otherwise the wine may not turn out as hoped. As you can see, it probably annoyed the people who were making Arneis because they really must work on the timeline of the grape and not on their own timeline. But it's important to know there's not just one Arneis. So the geological composition of the soil varies in Roero. So different comunes make different wines. What you can typically expect is a pale lemon color, aromatics of white peach, pear, white flower, sweet almond, citrus. It has low to medium acidity and that medium creamy texture that really kind of sets it apart. I will say one not so consumer-friendly fact about making Arneis is that the grape tends to oxidize quickly, so reductive techniques are needed when making the wine. And when it comes to oxidation in general, I do have a tip for you listeners to help preserve your wine after you've opened the bottle. I mean, sure, you can use a Coravin, but that often doesn't make sense with lower-priced wines. So any wine that you feel is going to oxidize overnight in that leftover 750 ml bottle. This is a trick I learned about 35 years ago, and it still works today and doesn't cost any money. What you need to do is next time you go shopping for wine, you buy a half a bottle of wine, any wine, and then after consuming the wine, you save the glass bottle and then use that bottle to store your leftover wine. So the idea is there's less oxygen touching the wine. So ideally, you may even want to initially pour half of the 750 ml into that half bottle and then, fill it all the way to the top, seal it up, and then put it in the door of your fridge. And it kind of should be like a brand new bottle. So that's very helpful if you don't want to drink a whole bottle and you're all by yourself and you only want to drink a half. It will really help preserve the wine if it's going to be another few days before you get to the wine. When it comes to food pairing an Arneis, I would certainly classify this as a versatile wine. It's a good starter wine, have a glass with your appetizer, maybe some fresh cheeses, but it would also pair well with Piemonte's famous export of risotto. So maybe a lobster risotto would be a great match. It's a very easy drinking wine. So in closing, I hope this brief chat on Arneis has inspired you to buy a bottle the next time you're out shopping for wine, or maybe try it by the glass at an Italian fine dining restaurant. I see them all the time being offered by the glass. Chin chin.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.